Hi, this is Anika from Living for Later, and I'm so excited because this August, my husband and I will be celebrating 15 years of marriage, and I won't even sit here and lie to you that and say that it's been just always such an easy road. We've experienced a lot of challenges in our marriage, and some of it was honestly our own doing, because we were putting self ahead of God. But I am just absolutely amazed to see how, as we have pursued God and put him, first, not just with our words, but through our actions, I'm just so blessed with just all that he has done in the both of us, which, consequently, it affects our marriage. And, I was just really reflecting. I've jokingly said to my husband that one of the best things that he did for our marriage was stand up to me. When we first got married, he was, whatever makes Anika happy, I'll go along. And sometimes, just to keep the peace, I won't say anything in opposition, right? I'm more outspoken than my husband is. And, sometimes, just to avoid arguments, he would just let me go on, and by default let me have my way. But that's not the way God designed it, and I didn't understand, honestly, the concept of submission. I read it, I read scriptures, I read Ephesians 5 and even had it memorized, but it wasn't my reality. I was so just focused on having my way and didn't necessarily live according to God's standard and his order. And it wasn't just my fault, it was also my husband's fault, because he just kind of was like, okay, in a way it means to pursue peace, I'll just let you have your way. But again, it wasn't fostering peace in our marriage, it was more chaos. But somewhere along the line, something clicked and he began to stand up to me. And I would love to say to you that when he did stand up to me, that I was just like, oh, this is just so awesome. No, it didn't quite happen like that. I rebelled against that, right? Because I wanted to have my way. I was a strong woman and I was opinionated, and when he began to stand up to me, it was difficult. But looking back on it, it's what I needed, right? Because it was God's order. And what I recognize is that submission doesn't mean that I don't have an opinion, or that I remain silent. Submission is that I'm going to line up under your authority. I could give you my opinions, right? But ultimately, I have to line up and go with what you are saying as the head. And with submission comes a form of honoring, right? And respecting your husband. So when he finally began to stand up to me, it created a shift in our marriage, and it didn't happen right away. But as we began to flow in God's order, I recognized how much I needed it, right? How much I needed his leadership and how much I needed his guidance. And as we're celebrating 15 years, it's just so amazing to me, because, where I thought I was strong, I'm seeing how really weak I was, right? And just because you make a lot of noise, that's not synonymous with strength, right? So I'm just so thankful. I want to encourage those wives out there who are just struggling with submission. Recognize that you're sabotaging your marriage when you don't submit to your husband. And if you don't necessarily agree with things, it's not always about you trying to prove your point. Take it to the Lord in prayer, right? And pray on behalf of your husband, because I tell you, being the head is not a job that I would want to have, even though I tried to claim it earlier on in our marriage. But there's so much weight and responsibility that comes with that. But, sometimes as wives, we get so frustrated and, oh, I wish this would happen in my marriage, and wish that, and we don't recognize that sometimes it's our inability to submit that's creating a lot of roadblocks in our marriage. And I have to say that when I lined up with God's divine order, I just saw things come together in our marriage. Long-standing issues began to, become resolved, And it wasn't necessarily that I saw how they were initially connected, but God honored my submission, right? And removed certain obstacles that were in the way. And a word to the husbands, for those of you that are watching, if you are a husband and you find yourself being passive, that's not how God created you to be. Take your rightful positions. And sometimes being the head means that you're going to come against some, friction, some opposition, but you have to take your God-given role. Your wife, your family, your children need you to stand up and be the man of God that God has called you and ordained for you to be. Marriage is such a beautiful thing. And I'm here with no pretense, just so thankful for that, all that God has taught me over these last 15 years and just the power in submission. So I just, again, want to encourage you, if you're a wife, to submit. And if you are the man, to lead. You be blessed.